I know I like nostalgia, but even I now think that unless wrestling kind of moves itself out of relying on nostalgia, it's just not going to be a draw in the future, because those fans that like the nostalgia are steadily going away. Maybe they come back now and again for a Bret Hart or somebody else, Ricky Steamboat perhaps, maybe even Virgil. But I just think these days, if it doesn't now start to cement itself with new stars, it's going to have a lot of trouble in the future. And I think TNA especially are under a huge threat. They just don't have the resources to stay, I think, on the air without any real success. And I think maybe success at the moment, are they doing well? They're keeping their spot, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think they've definitely, the last two impacts have been very much wrestling heavy. We saw it again on Thursday night. There was a lot of just wrestling matches, and good ones too, surprisingly. But Bischoff's going to take some time off TV, which he definitely needs to, I think. And Hogan has been pretty quiet. I think more Dixie would be good, seeing that she is the head honcho, and I don't know, it's just something good about when she's on TV. I like that. But going forward, yeah, it's gotten better, I think. It's definitely gotten better. And it will be interesting to see where it goes. I just hope they don't fuck it up.
Dixie's a good example of something I think would be a positive note. If they did put her in there more, and if she brushed up on the promo skills and maybe went into the ring and did some stuff where she was maybe a bit authoritarian, I think it would be good. And I think we're probably going to see something like that in the coming weeks with ECW. Will she be a sort of a lapdog for Heyman when he comes in? She sort of was for Bischoff, and Hogan played the part of being in charge, but I don't know, it just didn't seem to work in terms of whether you bought that on screen. I mean, it's true, we know it's true, but Hogan and Bischoff really worked so hard to make us all believe that they had all that stroke. But I wondered what kind of decisions they actually made. Were they just limited decisions?
Yeah, well, we saw the six-sided ring get the boot, so that was a huge one from the get-go, and I think it was a good thing, looking back. Does make them more, I suppose, appealing to fans of WWE if they'd never seen it. I think six-sided ring was a bit MMA territory, a little bit, but I think between that, burying the knockouts division completely, and putting too much focus on Abyss, where some of the things that, the ring thing was good, but I think the Abyss push and there was something else I was going to say. Oh, and killing off the knockouts division. Those two things, I mean, bad. That was bad for TNA, I think.
That's right. One of a series of some of the major things they did. You mentioned there, I think the ring was a great change, and it was well needed. It certainly brought it to, I think, a more understandable level for people just flicking on. I mean, people would have said, is this MMA, is this UFC, what is it? But I think nobody is in any doubt when they see the four-sided ring, and you're right, that was a huge bit of stroke, I think, to have made a decision like that and to have carried it through. It did show what they had at the start. Now I wonder what the feeling is backstage on them now. Do people backstage think it's been a good thing? I know a lot of the workers have at least been sort of rumoured as being disgruntled. Some of them, I mean, a lot of their friends have been, kicked out of the company, and I think in many ways those people, in some cases were people I watched out for, especially the knockout division. I mean, that at this stage is really just been scaled back to WWE diva territory.
Yeah, it's even worse, I think. It's even worse, and there's so much focus still on the beautiful people. But, we do get to see Daphne back, and they're given a lot of time to Taylor Wilde and stuff. So maybe they kind of realise that they have buried it so much, they're trying to build it back up. But it's going to take some time to get it back to the level it was. I mean, on any of the decent TNA pay-per-views, those knockouts matches were always really, really, really good, and it wouldn't be a toilet break like some of the, no offense to the Divas ones, but a lot of them are, really, when you think about it. And Yeah, I think most of those guys, when it comes to the ring as well, would have probably trained in a four-sided ring for most of their life. So I'm sure going back to it wasn't a big deal. And maybe it was just some of the TNA regulars that had been so used to wrestling in six sides for those couple of years. Might have been a bit disgruntled, as you say, but again, it brings it back to what they know and what they learned originally. So I'm sure at the end of the day, it wasn't a big problem.
Yeah, I think if I was to sort of maybe think positively about the future of TNA, I'd look to a guy like Jay Lethal, who I would have written off a few years ago as a comedian babyface. I certainly enjoyed the guy's work and character, but the tendency now to put him in a more serious role and to push him, and of course with Flair on that pay-per-view, what a great thing. But then losing to Jeff Hardy, I mean, why do you want to do that? But I suppose Jeff Hardy is a guy who you probably wouldn't mind losing to. I mean, this is a guy you know is going to get you some heat, but again, I think strange decision, and indeed very interesting end to TNA Impact at the end of this past week's show. And what's going to happen in the future? Mick Foley in there now again, Dixie Carter, the ECW guys, possibly Heyman. They're really just trying to get as many faces on TV as possible and hoping that it will do something for that rating, the 1.0, the 0.9. And yeah, I mean, it's not something to be sniffed at, really, is it? I mean, it is a good audience in the sense that they have kept it, and even when they left Thursday and went to Monday, they sort of maintained it a bit. It dropped, and there were always things going on the other side. But yeah, I suppose we've talked about TNA, and I think anything else going on in TNA is not really worth mentioning. I mean, the main card stuff, well, let's think about it. I mean, Jeff Hardy, Anderson in there, Jay Lethal. Anyone else catching your attention on there?
Well, Kendrick got buried again, but I think this is a build that's probably going to see him take the title maybe at the next pay-per-view or whatnot. But at least they're continuing on with the over and back with him and Douglas. So that's good. And people catching my attention. Well, Matt Morgan's kind of lost the bit of fun he had for a couple of weeks. But he's come back to being Matt Morgan. Team 3D. I do like the Beer Money and Motor City Machine Guns thing, and that pay-per-view match was really, really, really good. And good to see them get the belts. So, that aside, Anderson on board of already. And Abyss, forget about it. Lethal, yeah, he has come into his own a bit, but like you say, jobbing to Hardy, I suppose it would probably have to. Politics is really, isn't it?
You've got to do it. You've got to basically lose to that top babyface, and I presume Jeff Hardy is still being kind of touted as such by the bookers. Of course, that case, is it still coming up? It's constantly adjourned, and I haven't seen any definitive answer on what Jeff Hardy's future is going to be. Will he still be in TNA if he does successfully avoid prosecution? Will he be still the top babyface, or will he go straight back to Vince? I mean, I don't think they're going to have him back that quickly, but I think he's going back there eventually, isn't he?
It's a very good question. I think he's definitely, you can see he looks beat up and he looks tired. He definitely has put on weight too, and he's getting a little bit out of shape, and he's not moving as quick as he used to. He constantly looks completely exhausted from the get-go in any of the matches he's had recently, and it would be, I think it would be pretty insane for Vince to take him back. I don't think he would anytime soon, maybe down the line a bit, but if he does decide to, he'll be Christianized to bits when he gets back.
That's the problem, isn't it? You're just not going to have a push after you've done so much wrong in the eyes of the company, and I think Vince will probably... Will he bring him back? I suppose the answer to something like that lies in guys who've maybe come back. I mean, who has ever been in such a bad position as Jeff is at the moment in terms of his legal issues that has come back to the company. We know Iron Sheik and Jim Duggan, they had their issues, caught in a car with A to the Z, and indeed those guys, well, both of them made it back. Duggan quicker than Iron Sheik, but of course Iron Sheik came back as Sergeant Slaughter's, I think, right-hand man, and I think at that point, you know, they didn't have as serious a crime, I suppose, but I think maybe even in the chat room, maybe you guys could tell us if anybody else has made it back after such a big thing. But certainly I can't think of anything bigger in terms of legal problems than Jeff's current ones.